April is Earth Month, so let's go and make some upcycled DIYs. We're going to start off with this cloud light. Next, we're going to go and turn a bottle cap into a top. And last, we're going to go and take number 6 plastic and turn it into these little shrunken charms. So let's go and get started. I had this almost empty bottle that was filled with salad dressing. Wanted to go and make a salad, of course, rinse it out, and after it was rinsed out, I'm going to go and take off this wrapper from it. Now for this DIY, you probably will want to use a glass base or a plastic base that is going to be weighed down with something inside. Luckily, the adhesive keeping this wrapper on is just water soluble, so let's go and let that sit for a bit. Now this bottle of vitamin water, which of course is cleaned out, I'm going to go take off the top, which you will want to go and save this. If you do have a usable top that isn't cracked, go and keep that. We're going to use it for our next DIY. Let's take off this wrapper from this bottle. This one is actually plastic, but it can be recycled at certain locations. Usually stores will have a receptacle for this, and if there's any sticky residue that's left behind, you might want to use some Gooby Gone to get it off. This didn't leave much, so that is okay. And now we go back to the other bottle. Now that this bottle has sat in water for long enough, it looks like the wrapper is coming off pretty easily, so I'm just going to go and take that off. And again, luckily the adhesive on here was water soluble, so I didn't have to go and use any Gooby Gone or anything like that to go and take it off. Remove everything from this bottle. It should be nice and clean. Make sure to clean it off, and after it is cleaned up, we're just going to go and dry it off, of course, after you remove your water. Dry it off, make sure it's nice and clean, make sure there's no residue on it, make sure all the water is out of it, and make sure to do the same with the other bottle as well. This one was already cleaned out and pretty dry to begin with. Now line up your two bottles. Use a marker. I'm using an erasable one just so I don't have to go and cover up any of the color that might be left behind. Trace out, cut out a hole that should be just the shape of the other bottle's top. After this is cut out, if you want to go and paint your base, you can go and paint it. I suggest using chalk paint just because it leaves this really nice matte look to it, and I feel like it looks a little bit more like the sky. I didn't want to go and paint mine though because I want it to look like my cloud is floating. So now take your bottle, line up the hole, and we're going to go and use a very generous amount of hot glue at the edges. Make sure to go and get where any of the divots are on a bottle. I used one that had some pretty good divots that were pressed in it, which is fine, but I just had to use more hot glue. Now we're going to go and take some LED light up lights. You could always use ones that plug in, but I really do not suggest it because those ones can actually go and heat up pretty well and, of course, cause a fire. Now you can decide on if you want to use some cotton rounds if you do have them. If you're using cotton rounds, you're going to need anywhere between just about 20 to 30 of them to fully cover this bottle, so go and pull some of these apart. And after you have these pulled apart, we're just going to go and glue them down. It's good to start off in the center when you're gluing them down and branch out to the edges. And just in a second, I will show you how to go and cover this hole if you decided that you're going to go and put your LED lights through this side. Only put some glue on one section just in case these LED lights do end up dying, or maybe you want to add more, or you want to go and change out the color of them. So just cover that up partially, leave an edge that doesn't have any hot glue. If you want to keep this craft fully and totally upcycled, let's take an old stuffed animal. This one is a little bit beat up. It should be just about the size of the palm of your hand, and let's go and open it up. As you're opening this up very slowly, be extremely careful that you, of course, do not cut yourself, because you will have to use either a razor or maybe some scissors to get it open. I'm just using the scalpel to go and do so. Now take out all of the stuffing. As you can see, this one is definitely an older stuffed animal. Some of the stuffing in here is pretty old. So as you're taking all of this out, and again, you're really not going to need much, you're going to be probably pretty surprised at how much this expands when it comes out of a stuffed animal. So now, as you did for the other side, just go and glue it, and I realized that with at least this type of stuffing, it's usually a good idea to start at an edge because this just poofs out so much more than cotton does. So continue to go and glue all these pieces down, and as you're doing so, if there's any spots that you see that might need to be filled in, just do so. And now we're going to use a fork to actually go and make it a little bit fluffier. This works perfect for the cotton. The stuffing on the other side really doesn't need it though. So here's what it looks like when the LED lights are turned on and your lights are turned off. Depending on how many LED lights you put in here, it can get pretty bright. This side looks a little bit less stormy than the other one. And this one with the cotton looks extremely stormy. Which side do you actually like more? I like the one that looks a little bit less stormy and looks kind of like a more so clear sky cloud. On to the next craft. So for the top that we saved from the bottle, what we're going to go and do is we're going to have a toothpick off to the side. So you're only really going to need one. It might be a good idea to have just a second one because I did break my first one. Find where the center point is on this bottle cap. Make an X shape, cut through the plastic, of course, and some caps are a lot easier to cut through than others. Smart water ones are so easy to cut through. Take your toothpick, put it into the center of there, wiggle it around just a little bit so you can go and move it down a small amount more. And now we're going to go and hot glue it in place on the cap side where the cap side is open. After the hot glue has cooled down, now you have this bottle cap that you can go and spin. But let's move on to the next craft. Now you're going to need number 6 plastic. Number 6 plastic is the only one that is going to go and shrink down like this and will have no coloration at the sides. You could use other plastics if you really wanted to, but you will not have the same effect. Number 6 is exactly what they use for shrink ink paper, so you have your own shrink ink paper, but it is upcycled. So let's cut out the center here. Try not to go and split this plastic because this plastic usually is pretty thin and pretty fragile. Now we're going to go and take some sandpaper on one side of it, and we're going to go and create marks so anything that we use on the surface of it will catch. So after you have that done, which here's a better example of what I'm doing, I'm going back and forth along with also using some circular motions as well, just so I have some lines that are in all directions so any color that I use will catch. Make sure to go and of course wipe it off because you don't want any of this plastic stuff to be stuck in whatever you're going to be making next. Now, alcohol pens or alcohol markers are the best to use for this. You could also use color pencils, but anything like a Sharpie or an alcohol-based marker is the best to use. So I'm just drawing out a flower. I'm going to color the inside of it, along with also add some detail into the center. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy that you're making, but you could honestly draw some pretty cool things or trace over whatever you've drawn already, and it acts the same exact way as Shrinky Dinks would. So as I'm going from here, I'm just putting down some of the colors. Of course, I'm going to go and outline it as well. And after you're done with the outline, make sure it dries off properly because you don't want to go and smudge anything that you've worked on. It usually does take about 1 to 3 minutes for it to dry fully. Now we're going to go and cut it out. When you're cutting this out, you're going to want to cut it in pieces rather than just cut out the entire thing, because if you don't, you will have some of the plastic that does split a bit. So make sure to go nice and slow and do keep that in mind. Again, this plastic is usually very thin. I wanted to go and just draw one more thing, which is a little tiny heart. And also too, for a great example of what you should do if you want to make this into maybe a charm that you can put a hole in the top, you would cut out most of the shape, leave at the top of it a little semicircle, and then cut out any more details as well. If you want to go and turn this into a charm, go and take something that is maybe sharp, kind of like the scalpel here, and go and punch out a hole. Make sure to be nice and careful as well too, just because of course, again, you don't want to go and cut yourself. Now we're going to go and put this into a toaster oven. You could use your normal oven as well too. It should be around 250 to 300 degrees. And what'll happen is these will start to go and fold up a little bit, and they'll shrink, and they'll look like this after they have cooled down. You can go and cover these in resin if you would like to, and you can go and use them as charms or magnets or anything of that sort. And this is honestly one of my favorite upcycled crafts to go and do. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, take care and have a great one.